Welcome back to Knowledge Resources Speaker Feature. Today, we're sitting down with Craig Raath, the Executive Director at 21st Century. We'll be taking a look at performance management, which he will be addressing further at the upcoming HR Summit event. Craig, thank you so much for joining us today.
Cool. Thanks, Amy. Thanks for having me.
Just to kick us off, Craig, could you give us a quick overview of what you'll be speaking about at the conference and what we have to look forward to?
Perfect. Perhaps if I just highlight three sort of main themes that I want to address in the session. First one being performance management as it pertains to this hybrid reality that we find ourselves in, and perhaps then a forward look to see what's coming down the road. Second thing would be around people analytics and the use of technology. So essentially how 4IR is impacting HR and in particular performance management, and then the important leadership skills that need to be brought into the process side of performance management.
It's interesting to me that you mentioned sort of the more technological sides of it as well, the hybrid, of course, and the people analytics. Do you think that this whole sort of trend of performance management and it's the new onset of it, was that an inevitable change, or do you think that's something that really only the new hybrid working world could have instigated?
No, I mean, it's a strange one. Most organizations have said for many years that they have got performance management and they've got performance related pay. But being in consulting, we've seen how that's meted out in organizations, and the practices are so very different. So the change that we've seen is a reframing of what is measured, and we've seen a significant shift from output and time-based measures in performance management to very much an outcomes-based measurement of performance. So in other words, not so much focusing on the process of how you get to the performance, but of the end goal, irrespective of how you got there or the circumstances that allow an employee to hit those outcomes.
And what's the response been to this sort of shift in the places where you have seen it implemented to being so output focused? Is this a potential asset in the war for talent in the future?
Yeah, look, I would say so. I think there's a definite need to more clearly differentiate talent and drive fairness through the performance process, because that's the trick that we need to get right. Is when you've got some employees that want to work in the office, some employees that choose to work more from home, you've got to make sure that we've got the those outcomes buttoned down, so that there's no preferential treatment from those who choose to be visible to managers and those who work in the background, which is why there's that shift to the outcomes rather than the observable outputs, and that has been so prevalent in performance up to this point.
But that must be such a big challenge for leadership, having these almost many different groups to manage and trying to lead them equally and cohesively. Do you have any advice for leaders today who are trying to do that? What's a skill that you think they will need to acquire to succeed in that in the future?
Yeah, up your soft skills game is really what it's about. Especially at management and senior management level. I think as you get higher than that, if you look at the reporting lines, you've got far more senior folk reporting into true sort of exco leadership positions in organizations. But at manager, supervisor, senior management level, really those soft skills have got to come to the fore, and things like empathy and understanding, and just the knowledge around people's personal circumstances have got to be brought to the table, so that you create this environment of trust is critically important, and that employees have got the psychological safety around performance, so that you can encourage those open discussions around expectations and performance on the one hand, and the empirical evidence to back those conversations up on the other.
So issuing actually a very large challenge for leaders. in the future. And I really agree with you. I think the soft skills is something that has become a hot topic, and rightly so. I think it's really something that's going to be very important. Just sort of as a closing question, Craig, we've been diving into how we can rethink remuneration in the new world of work. What is another aspect that you really think managers will have to take another look at and reset their mindset on, especially with regards to performance management?
Yeah, I think the focus needs to be not so much on the new world of work, but on the future world of work, because it's what's really exciting and what's going to be a fundamental shift is what's coming down the line. And why I say that is people and analytic data is becoming so much more prevalent as a tool to make decisions in organizations, and more importantly, predictive people analytics is around the corner, and there's a few organizations that are starting to understand the impact that you can have by predicting employee behavior. So if I use an example, more so than the financial data in an organization, the HR sits on probably the most valuable repository of information in the organization. If you can just imagine social media, Facebook, or when you go into Google, and how those ads just get tailored to your needs. Organizations are going to move that way, and that people data is going to be used to predict what the environment needs to look like on a personal basis for employees to up their performance by rolling those boulders away, and focusing on the environment that's most conducive to upping their performance levels.
So almost much more individualized. That's so interesting that you say that. What effect do you think that's going to have on company culture? Because it almost sounds like the cohesive company culture is a little bit in the days of the past. I don't mean it completely, but it does seem like you're mentioning a much more individualized approach to employee experience.
Sure. It's look, I think organizations are still going to need to define what their corporate culture looks like, and hire for it. That's for me the biggest retention tool is not opening the door to the wrong fit for your organization. So I still think that's going to be the biggest driver. But we're into a period of mass customization, and you've got to hit individual employees' needs. I mean, you're going to be sitting with or you are sitting with a workforce where you've got individuals at different life stages, different personality types, different personal circumstances, and we need to create an environment that's going to appeal to all of that individuality in your workforce.
Well, clearly there's a lot that has to change in our mindset as leaders and just within the HR space in general. Thank you so much for joining me today, Craig. Anyone who's watching this interview and really wants to find out more or is interested in more, please join us at the HR Summit conference. There will be a link available in the description. Craig, I can't thank you enough. This has been very insightful.
Thank you. And I'm really looking forward to an in-person event again. It's going to be so much fun.